America's first competition talk show. You're in the hub.
The book just recently came out. Fred Bose and another gentleman by the name of Paul Froese wrote a book at Baylor University that's got folks talking. It's called America's Four Gods. What we say about God, and it's important to understand, Jack, because it determines kind of how we view the political world, the social issues, all these different things. So my first question about America's Four Gods is God bipolar, or are we?
We are.
We are. Okay. You're going to give him the benefit of the doubt?
Yeah,
all
definitely.
right. Not about doubt here, but we believe in doubt at times.
Right.
So the study is really interesting because what they did was they had a national telephone survey. They had a little over 1,600 adults take the study, all of whom had the faith of a child, and they all answered the questions on interviews about their beliefs about faith and what they defined God as being. And they showed them a couple hundred images, evocative images, and then got their response. We got a couple of those I'll throw up here. One was this, okay, and that would be kind of a wrathful old man slamming the earth. Another one was a loving father's embrace, had something like that going on, and then you had an accusatory face, more or less like that one. And then finally, a starry universe. So after which time, everyone said that God was a composite of eccentric celebrities, and that this whole thing was a whole hell of a lot easier when we were just using ink blots. We should go back to that. But I've just got to ask you, how much do you think this plays a factor, Jack, in determining how we view politics, our image of God? Are we really a God-centric nation to this extent, do you think?
Well, I think we're becoming more than we used to be. I think everything kind of fell away for a long time, actually. And I really think that since all this whole, I guess, for lack of better terms, movement had started, because this is what we're being viewed as, a movement now. So people have looked back what the founders, what the framers were, where our country started, where it came from, and it was raised. God was in the whole thing, every bit of it. And the more we educate, the more we learn, we find that out. And through personal experience, we find out how big God really is.
Yeah,
because
that is the inconvenient truth,
yes,
Al.
Yes.
That it wasn't a lot of hot air.
Yes.
But that's the thing here, and they go into these categories, and I just want to throw some of these at you. The authoritative God, they said that the definition of that, and it's a definition that 28% of Americans share a view of right now, is that when the authoritative God model is kind of appeals to the Sarah Palin, Glenn Beck crowd. Right. A lot of conservatives in this movement, as you're pointing out right now, and that definition is that that God is engaged in history, and he's meting out harsh punishment to those who do not follow him. So basically, he's the coach that makes you run laps, or cedes national sovereignty over to the Chi-Coms. Either way, if you don't mind your P's and Q's.
Right.
Use it or lose it.
Yeah, I don't personally subscribe to that, because he has the hairs of our head numbered. He knows everything about us, and he's not the dictator, where you're going to be the angry, wrathful God that's going to punish you because you didn't do something right. That's not my view of God after all these years.
Okay. So we'll move on to the next one. The benevolent God. This one, and I guess the other one they said about the first one is that people like this respond, the authoritative God, to a powerful God who's guiding the country. And if we don't explicitly talk about that God, these people believe, then we have the wrong God or no God at all. So basically, God sees it black and white, and he needs his ego stroked on occasion.
I don't think so.
A little self-sufficient. All right.
Yeah. He created the sphere, so I don't
comes
think
out with omnipotence, omniscience, stuff like that. Kind of meets out at the end of the day. Okay, the benevolent God. This God is engaged in our world. He loves and supports us in caring for others. And this is a vision that 22% of Americans basically believe. So this God looks like Angelina Jolie scooping up half the orphan children on the continent of Africa, basically. What do you think here?
Well, I think to me, my impression of it is more of a benevolent God, but more of the loving father type of God. And equally, he shares his love out with everybody if they choose to accept it or not. You have different faiths, religions, cults that don't subscribe to this. He doesn't blow them away. He's still a loving God, still tries to want to gives them an option to be able to do what they want to do and come see his way and see that he's not this harsh monster like that everybody makes him out to be.
God is a God of mercy, and you better thank God for that.
Yes.
So you got that one. Then you've got another one here, which is kind of interesting to me because. The critical God, and they say that a lot of the folks that are the poor and the suffering around the world see God this way because he's kind of like the cosmic Santa Claus. He's making a list and checking it twice, and it's the pros and cons. It's all going to add up in the end. You'll be better off, and and that's the feeling that they have. You feel like. A lot of Americans have that. They say 21% of Americans feel that way.
I find that hard to believe, really.
Really, and this was something that came out interesting in the book. He said that you can't really ask people. This was a point that that Frost made in the book. You can't really ask people directly about their moral and philosophical worldview. And I've got to wonder why, because I mean, people are afraid to give a straight answer, or because they don't have one to give.
Well, I think a lot of it is people don't really know, and so it's easier to be recluse and come sit back and say, "I'd rather not talk about that because it's sensitive to them." Because they don't have an answer.
Yeah.
Because the ones who do have an answer are glad to share it with you, and usually everyone else around them. So it's. But yeah, I think that's. It's curious where they got all their percentages at.
Well, and the last one here is kind of interesting because they say only about 5% of Americans are atheists or agnostic. So the last category, the distant God, is nearly 1 in 4 Americans. 24% believe that basically God booted up the universe and then left town for a couple thousand years. So this is basically like God started the company and then outsourced the call center to a little place in Bangalore.
Well, not to sound harsh, because I'm not meaning it this way, but there's a lot of people, I've run into a lot of people like this, that they feel that, God wasn't good enough to them because they didn't get the job they want. So they didn't get all the things they felt they should have.
Yeah.
Or, I didn't get all the breaks that I should have had. How come he got it? I didn't get it. Well, God doesn't, God's abandoned me because of that. And that's...
This is the whole Jimmy Swaggart, health and wealth gospel kind of thing.
Yeah. And there's that's a large percentage of people that you see because they feel it's an entitlement. They feel they're entitled to it.
Yeah.
And
so you're saying essentially that if we hit hyperinflation next year, God is having a midlife crisis. Is that what's going on? Okay. I could go with that personally, and God knows I want to invest wisely for that reason. Now, here, in the final scope of things, though, and I have to say this because we're hitting up on an election year, and I hear this all the time from folks, especially folks from the religious community, saying that the whole separation of church and state line, which is not constitutional, but it's a line that the faith community in this country has believed, except for those stalwart faithful in the atheist community who are a religion unto themselves. The rest of the faith community says we have no place there. We have no place in the political world. You said earlier we're moving back into a movement now of folks that are connecting the dots, connecting the two. Right. Glenn Beck, radio talk show host, got a lot of trouble back in August for that rally he dared to have on the National Mall that had a religious theme to it, and it was all about the needs of the country at the same time. So at the end of the day, I believe we as a nation have a really Gnostic view of our faith now. In other words, we don't believe, we're pie in the sky, our heads are in the clouds. Right. We believe that faith is for the sweet by and by, it's after we are gone. Right. And it has no relevance here on earth. That's got to change for a lot of folks. And I think it's beginning to the direction that we're headed, because at the end of the day, everything we do legislatively in the public sphere is based on a worldview, value system.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And I think it is changing. It's evolving back to that again now from what it was. People are starting to wake up. They're starting to see, a lot of people now are actually, if you go to like the Library of Congress, you go and look at the ceiling in there, you go look at the mosaics. It's out of Leviticus.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all, everything we were founded off, and people are finally starting to see that and wake up saying, wow, we really were God-based.
Yeah.
What are we missing here?
And as a postmodern, I just can't bring myself to believe that, though, because I speak, therefore I have a legitimate opinion. Yeah. It may not be well informed, but that doesn't matter, does it? does it.
Yeah.
We'll see you tomorrow on The Hub.